Welcome to our deep dive into the Pilgrim's Progress. It's, one of those books that it just feels like it's always been around. This 17th century masterpiece by John Bunyan,
Yeah.
We're going to explore all those themes and symbolism and dig into what makes this story about spiritual awakening so powerful, even, hundreds of years later.
It's really incredible how this allegorical novel, written so long ago, still speaks to us today. All the characters and the places and events, they all act like metaphors for these spiritual struggles and truths that we're facing in our own lives.
Yeah, exactly. And just think about it. This book, often considered one of the most important pieces of religious literature, in the English language, was written by Bunyan while he was in prison
Wow, I didn't realize that.
for preaching without a license.
It's amazing.
It really speaks to, the power of his message.
Yeah, it does. But let's dive into the story. We begin with Christian, our main character, our protagonist. He's trapped in this city of destruction, weighed down by the burden of his sin.
Yeah, and I love how Bunyan really sets the scene for us, right? He's reading this book, which we kind of figure out is the Bible, and he's just totally distraught, crying out, what shall I do? This feeling of despair and realizing that something needs to change. I think we can all relate to that in some way.
Well, absolutely. It's that existential crisis where you realize, you need something more. And Bunyan just uses such strong imagery to show us Christians' inner struggle. He's dressed in rags, which shows us his spiritual poverty.
Yeah.
And then that burden on his back, like a visual, representation of the weight of his sin.
Mm-hmm. And then we meet Pliable, his companion, who initially sets out with him super enthusiastic, but quickly trees back when they hit that swamp of despond.
Yeah, Pliable represents those people who love the idea of spiritual change, but, just don't want to commit. It's like human nature, right? To avoid what's uncomfortable and choose the easy way out.
Totally. And that swamp of despond itself, what a great metaphor. All that negativity and self-doubt when you first start, on a spiritual path. It's so easy to get bogged down.
It's so sticky and murky. Think about, in your own life when you've tried to change a bad habit or reach a goal. It's like wading through that swamp, trying to keep your head above water.
For sure. And, in the story, just as Christian is sinking deeper and deeper, he bumps into Mr. Worldly Wise Man.
Oh, Mr. Worldly Wise Man. He's all about the quick fix. That voice inside that tells us to cut corners and skip the hard work, the, real inner transformation.
Yeah.
He tells Christian, go to the pound of morality to get rid of that burden. That sounds reasonable, but...
Yeah. But it's a trap. It's all about trying to fix spiritual stuff with, earthly solutions. Morality, the way Bunyan describes it, it's all superficial. Following rules without actually changing your heart.
Right. It's like a reminder that real growth, it's not just fitting in, it's looking deeper at your beliefs, your motivations, your core.
In Christian, being human, he falls for it, gets pulled off the path, almost leads to disaster, stumbles into this dark place, showing us the consequences of going the wrong way.
But then, thankfully, Evangelist shows up, divine guidance, gets Christian back on track, points him toward that narrow gate. That's the entrance to the real path, right?
And I love how Evangelist doesn't force him, just guides him, offers wisdom, direction, but ultimately it's Christian's choice to make. It's about free will, right?
Yeah.
Choosing our path consciously.
We always have that choice. Even when we're lost, there's always a way back. And then, through that narrow gate, Christian finally arrives at the interpreter's house, filled with these, allegorical scenes, each one meant to reveal a deeper spiritual truth.
Oh, I love this part. It's spiritual understanding in action.
Yeah, abstract ideas becoming real, through experiences.
Exactly. Each scene is a lesson, a mirror, showing us how complex the human heart is and how challenging the spiritual journey can be.
Yeah. So we have this image of the man stuck in the iron cage, totally consumed by despair. He chose to reject salvation, to become a prisoner of his own negativity.
Yeah, it's really scary. It makes you think, what puts someone in that state? Is it a choice? Or do they slowly give in to despair?
It's a good question. But, the interpreter's house also gives us images of hope and change. That dusty parlor being clean, it's like the purifying power of God's grace.
Yeah.
It reminds us that no matter how much our past weighs us down, we can always be made clean.
It's beautiful, isn't it? That potential for change within us. And then you have passion and patience. Two totally different ways of looking at life.
Yeah.
Passion wants it all now and ends up with nothing.
Yeah.
While patience understands, delayed gratification. That's a classic lesson, right?
That's
about desire. about being impatient and the rewards of sticking with it. And then there's that scene, with the fire burning against the wall. The devil is trying to put it out, but someone's secretly pouring oil on the flames behind the wall.
It's like, that secret work of divine grace, even when we don't see it. There's a force fighting for us, even when we struggle.
Yeah, it's comforting, right? To know we're not alone.
Definitely. And then finally, Christian watches as this man fights his way into this glorious palace, symbolizing that, fight and victory of the spiritual warrior. It's powerful. It's like a call to action, This journey isn't easy. It takes courage and perseverance.
It does. What about you? Which of these scenes really sticks with you? Do any of them resonate with your own experiences?
Yeah, something to think about.
Yeah, it is. So Christian, armed with all this knowledge, he leaves the interpreter's house, ready to face whatever comes next. He's still got a long way to go, but he's changing, he's growing, and he's starting to understand what this whole pilgrimage is really about.
And that's what keeps people coming back to this story, right? That invitation to join Christian, face our demons, confront the challenges of the world, and ultimately discover what it means to truly awaken. So Christian leaves the interpreter's house, right? And heads straight for a hill difficulty. It's a climb that really tests him, like both literally and metaphorically, right? It's all about the challenges of growing spiritually.
Yeah, the way Bunyan describes it, you can just feel how exhausted Christian is. Each step gets heavier and heavier. And then he gives into temptation, takes a nap in that arbor meant for hired travelers.
We've all been there when we lose focus, get distracted, and, drift off course. The arbor, it's meant to be a rest stop, but it becomes like a symbol of getting too comfy, losing sight of the goal.
Yeah, if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. And Christian, he misses out on reaching the top before dark because he falls asleep.
Exactly. And as darkness sets in, he runs into formalist and hypocrisy. They're lurking in the shadows, representing those who care more about appearances than real change.
Yeah. They even, try to make Christian feel bad about his new clothes from the cross. Yeah. The symbol of his new faith. It's like a reminder that true spirituality isn't about just fitting in, right?
No, it's about that inner change. Formalist and hypocrisy, they're all about rules and rituals without any real heart change. It's like that voice inside us that wants approval, not real transformation.
And their paths, even though they seem easier at first, they lead them astray. It's like a warning against those shortcuts, Real growth, it takes honesty and integrity.
Absolutely. And as Christian climbs, he has this moment of, panic. He's lost his scroll, that symbol of his assurance of salvation.
Oh, man. It's such a huge loss. It's like those times we feel disconnected from our faith. Doubt creeps in and clouds everything. It's a reminder that even the most faithful can experience those dry spells, that uncertainty.
Yeah, for sure. But how Christian reacts is important. He goes back, searches until he finds it, shows us how important it is to actively look for what we've lost, never give up, even when we're in despair.
Right? It's like, rediscovering our faith, going back to our roots, reaffirming what we believe, reclaiming what's truly valuable.
And he's rewarded, right? Finding that scroll renews his purpose. He finally reaches the Palace Beautiful. It's like this haven, Represents the support you find in a community of believers.
It's a place of rest, encouragement. The Christian gets nourished, body and soul. He meets discretion, prudence, piety, charity, all those virtues that keep faith strong.
It shows how important it is to be around like-minded people, those who share our values, support our growth. We're not meant to do this alone.
And they don't just, give him tea and sympathy. They take him to the armory. All that spiritual weaponry, swords, shields, helmets, even shoes that never wear out.
It's like all the resources we have for our spiritual battles. Prayer, scripture, the armor of righteousness. Reminds us we're not powerless against temptation.
Yeah, like gearing up for the big boss fight. And speaking of battles, then Christian sees this epic showdown. A warrior fighting Apollyon, this monstrous figure of evil.
It's a, visual representation of the spiritual battles we all fight. There's going to be opposition, temptation, but it shows how strong we can be when we have faith and determination.
It's intense, fire, fury, the whole thing. Christian gets wounded, but he doesn't quit. He fights back with the sword of the Spirit, beats Apollyon.
It's an image of overcoming, confronting our demons and coming out stronger. What about you? What are your Apollons? Those challenges you face. What helps you fight them?
That's a great question. Makes you think. So after the battle, Christian recovers at the Palace Beautiful. He learns about the history of the faith, the experiences of those who came before.
It's like, studying the past, getting wisdom and inspiration from those who walked this path before. They show us we're part of something bigger.
A legacy of faith. And as Christian gets ready to leave, he meets Faithful. A new companion shows us how important it is to have someone to share the journey with.
Yeah, Faithful brings a new dynamic. They share their struggles, lift each other up, face things together. We're not meant to go it alone.
And their first test is Vanity Fair. This crazy market where everything's for sale, even souls.
It's all about the allure of worldly stuff, right? How temporary it all is, like a satire of consumerism, chasing things that don't matter.
Like a huge distraction, trying to pull us off the path. And Faithful, he's so strong in his beliefs, he becomes a target. Put on trial, accused of being a traitor.
It's what happens when you stand up for what you believe in, right? Especially in a world that values fitting in and material things, it can cost you.
And Faithful's faith, it leads to his death. He's executed, but his spirit goes to heaven. Christian's alone again, but carrying Faithful's courage with him.
Such a powerful moment. Even in death, faith wins. Faithful's story reminds us that belief can outlast anything.
It does. Christian keeps going, grieving, but he pushes on. He meets Hopeful, who brings a whole new perspective to the journey.
Hopeful, he's all about optimism, right? Keeping hope alive even when things are tough.
Yeah.
He reminds Christian that there's always a brighter future.
They're a good team. They balance each other. Christian, with his worries, gets challenged by Hopeful's positivity. And Hopeful, he learns from Christian's cautious wisdom.
Like, different perspectives enriching the journey. We need people who challenge us and support us. Growth often comes from those relationships.
Yeah. And their journey, well, it gets rough. They meet Mr. Bunyan's, all smooth talking, represents compromise, taking the easy way out.
Mr. Bunyan's, he's like the poster child for hypocrisy. Says he's on the right path, but really he just wants worldly success, totally different from Christian and Hopeful's commitment,
Right. Then there's Demas tempting them with riches from a silver mine. So obvious, right? The temptation of wealth.
It can be so distracting, a trap that leads us away from what's truly important. But Christian and Hopeful, they see through it. They know real wealth isn't about money, it's about spiritual fulfillment.
It's a constant test, isn't it? Their journey, choices, challenges, temptations. And even they make mistakes.
Yeah, like when flatterer leads them astray, the dangers of pride, wanting empty praise. That detour takes them right into the hands of giant despair.
Oh no, Doubting Castle. It's like this dark turn, descending into despair, hopelessness. Like when doubt takes over, those walls feel impossible to climb.
Giant despair, he's like negativity personified. Doubt can paralyze us, keep us from moving. He even tempts them with suicide. It's scary how deep despair can go when we lose sight of hope.
Yeah, but Hopeful, his name says it all, right? He refuses to give in. He reminds Christian about God's promises, the hope that's waiting for them.
It's like that lifeline, pulling Christian back from the edge, reminding him of his own strength, the power of hope, It can carry us through the darkest times.
They can. And together, their faith, their determination, it helps them escape. They use the key of promise to unlock those doors.
It's like, the freedom we find in faith. Never giving up hope, even when things are bad. We're not trapped if we believe in something bigger and keep striving. It's so true. And then they run into ignorance who thinks good deeds are enough for salvation. Christian tries to explain grace, that salvation is a gift.
Ignorance represents that thinking, that we earn our way. It's dangerous. We have to understand grace, our connection with the divine. It's not about being perfect. It's about knowing we need redemption, accepting forgiveness.
Yeah. And then there's the story of little faith, the pilgrim who gets robbed. Christian focuses on the negative, the loss, the danger. But Hopeful, he points out that little faith still reached the celestial city, even without his stuff.
Two different ways of looking at the same thing. Christian, he worries, sees obstacles. Hopeful, he's optimistic, focuses on the goal.
It's like our perspective shapes everything, right?
Right.
How we see our experiences, whether we focus on the bad or the good.
And then comes their biggest test, the valley of the shadow of death. Dark, dangerous, full of fear and doubt.
It's where their faith is pushed to the limit, facing those deep fears, wondering if they'll make it.
Yeah, the darkest moments we experience, right? When despair feels overwhelming. They're attacked by guilt, by their past, by their present. All that baggage we carry, the mistakes, the struggles. Our own inner demons can be so powerful.
They can. But even there, they find strength in each other, reminding each other of God's promises, the hope that carries them through.
And they make it. They come out of the valley, maybe a little bruised, but not broken. Their faith is even stronger. And then They find the Delectable Mountains.
It's like this peaceful place, you know? Clarity, peace, a time to rest and recover after all that darkness. Like a reminder that even in the hard times, there's grace and beauty to be found.
Yeah. They meet shepherds who give them guidance, point out landmarks that represent, like, the dangers and the triumphs on the path.
Like a spiritual map, right, showing the way. And Christian and hopeful, they see this man bound by 7 devils being dragged back to destruction.
It's a scary reminder that the journey's not over once you have a victory, you know. You have to stay alert. Temptation can always come back.
We have to keep fighting, keep resisting. But then, amidst all that, they get a glimpse of what's waiting. They reach Beulah land, this paradise of orchards and vineyards.
Beautiful.
It's like spiritual maturity, closeness to God, a place of peace where everything feels lighter, a taste of the celestial city, a glimpse of the glory waiting for those who keep going.
They get to enjoy the fruits of the land, rest in the king's gardens, experience this peace they've never known before.
But even in this paradise, their journey isn't over. The river of death still lies ahead.
That final challenge. Even in this perfect place, you can't escape death. And that river, it's going to test their faith in ways they can't even imagine.
So here we are, the last part of Christian's journey. He's finally at the river of death.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a powerful image. This river, no bridge, no boat, no easy way to get across.
Yeah, it really is. It's that ultimate crossing, right? From life to, well, whatever comes next. The great unknown. No turning back.
And you know what's interesting? Christian, he's faced all these challenges head on, so much courage, but now he's terrified, full of doubt.
It makes sense, though, right? Even the most faithful person, I mean, death is scary. That river, the dark water, it's like all our fears about the unknown, losing control, that this is it, you know?
Exactly, and he starts sinking. Like all those past sins, those fears, they're pulling him under. He forgets all those promises, those moments of, you know, grace he's experienced.
It's like even the strongest person can be overwhelmed by fear, right?
Yeah.
It reminds us that faith isn't about never having doubts. It's about believing, even when you're scared, even when you can't see what's ahead.
Yeah, and hopeful, he's right there with him, like always. Tries to encourage him, reminds him about God's faithfulness, the beauty of the celestial city, the joy that's waiting.
Like those words of hope are a lifeline, right? Helping us rise above our anxieties, believing in something bigger than ourselves.
But Christian, he's struggling so much he can't even hear those words. He's fighting for his life against the current, against the fear, against, I don't know, the reality of it all, you know?
It's raw, isn't it? Bunyan doesn't sugarcoat it. He shows us that this journey to salvation, it can be terrifying, even for the most devout. Yeah. And that's what makes the ending so powerful.
I agree. And just when you think he's done for, Christian makes it to the other side. Weak, exhausted, but he's alive. And there, waiting for him, are the 2 shining men. Those, like, angelic figures who've been guiding him all along.
It's like that image of grace, you know? That even in our weakest moments, there's something there to support us. That promise of comfort, a light in the darkness.
And they help Christian and hopeful up the hill toward the celestial city. And their clothes, you know, those symbols of their earthly struggles, they're gone, washed away in the river. They have new clothes now, like a sign of their transformation, ready for eternal life.
Powerful, isn't it? Like shedding the weight of the past, all those things holding us back, the fears, the doubts, entering a new realm, a place of freedom.
And then they're there at the gates of the celestial city. I can't even imagine that kind of beauty, music, light, all those angels and saints welcoming them.
Wow. The celestial city. It's like that ultimate goal, right? Total peace, joy, connection with God, everything they've been hoping for, striving for.
Yeah, after all those struggles and triumphs, like a reminder that no matter how hard the journey, how dark it gets, there's something amazing waiting at the end, a place of rest and fulfillment.
And then, well, we see what happens to ignorance, who shows up at the gate. But he doesn't have the right clothes, the garment of righteousness that comes from faith. He can't get in, he's sent away.
Yeah. It's a reminder that salvation isn't about being self-righteous or just doing good deeds. It's about recognizing our need for something bigger, accepting that forgiveness.
Ignorance's story, it's a warning, isn't it? To stay on the right path, to seek real change, to trust in something greater than ourselves.
It is. And then, well, Bunyan ends the whole story with, "So I awoke, and behold, it was a dream."
What a way to end it, right?
Yeah.
Was it all just a dream, in Christian's head? Or something more, like this incredible story about the journey we all take to find spiritual truth?
It's up to each person to decide, isn't it? What do you think? Was it a real journey or a metaphor for our inner lives?
Either way, the Pilgrim's Progress gives us so much to think about faith, about the struggles we face, about the hope that's always there.
Yeah. It's a story that's resonated with people for, like, centuries. It guides us, encourages us, gives us a glimpse of something beyond our everyday lives.
It reminds us that life is a journey, a pilgrimage, towards something bigger than ourselves. And even though there are going to be challenges, doubts, even darkness, we can find strength in our faith, hold on to the promises, and know that we're not alone in this.
Well said.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Pilgrim's Progress, take some time to think about Christian's journey. What parts really stuck with you? What does it make you think about your own life?
What challenges are you facing? What's tempting you to go off course? And what choices are you making today that will shape your own journey, your own path towards, well, your own version of that celestial city?
Those are great questions to think about, questions that can help us all as we navigate our own spiritual paths. Thank you for joining us as we explored this incredible work of literature. May Christian's story inspire you to keep searching, keep striving, and keep the faith, no matter what comes your way.